On behalf of the Churchill Club, First Move, and Silicon Valley Bank, I would like to welcome you this evening and thank all of you for coming. This is a very special evening, and we are thrilled that you can be here with us. I'm Wendy Fisher. I'm the Executive Director of the First Move program. And with me, I have Aaron Gershenberg from Silicon Valley Bank. When you came in this evening, you all put a ticket into this little bucket right here, and that was for the chance to play Magnus Carlsen. So the first thing we're going to do is have our drawing. And then if you're not the winner, since that's only one ticket, you'll have the opportunity to purchase your seat through auction. So Aaron?
So the winner is 698949. I like the symmetry of those numbers.
698949. Congratulations. And what's your name?
Vedant.
Welcome, Vedant. Go ahead, you pick any table is fine. So for the remaining 5 seats, we're going to auction them off. And we don't have bid numbers, so we're going to do it the very simple way. If you are willing to pay $1 to play Magnus Carlsen, stand up. Okay, we're at $1. Wow, some of you aren't even willing to pay $1? Or you're just petrified. I'm like, no way. Okay, if you are willing to maintain your bid at $100, remain standing. $200, remain standing.
Maybe do $500.
Really? We'll do both.
Okay, go for it. Me too, yeah.
300, remain standing.
Maybe a show of hands?
Yes. You can, what?
Credit card.
You can pay with credit card, cash, check.
Bitcoins.
Yes.
So how many do we have? How many?
Okay, we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We got a whole slew of people standing up there, but I think they're confused. Okay, so we're at about 10 people for 5 slots. So we'll take it up another 100.
What are you at?
We're at 4 or 5.
Okay. So I think we're at $500. How many people? Can I see a show of hands at $500? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow. Wow. Okay, so let's go to 550. Did anybody sit down at 550? What? Okay, we did. Well, we're going to drop. I think we need to fill 5 seats. So I think it's 750. Okay, we got one out. So let me see a show of hands. 750. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's come up. Let's those at 750 come up. Oh yeah, this is all tax deductible. And this is, by the way, what are we doing with this money?
We're supporting the First Move chess program, which is a nonprofit that puts chess into 2nd and 3rd grade classrooms to teach critical and creative thinking skills. Thank you.
No, I think we've got 4, and we need. So we need just one more person at 750. All right, nice, excellent. Thank you, Doug Carlisle. Woo! All right.
Okay, we can bring Magnus out.
Are you going to take it from here?
You all will be playing black.
Let me see the mic.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go get Magnus Carlsen, and please, when he comes in, give him a standing ovation. Here's a 23-year-old who was just successful in November and winning the World Chess Championship. He's someone who's going to be a part of our lives for many, many years to come. Let me go get Magnus, and we'll give him a big, warm round of applause. Here, hold
And then we have the standard announcement for housekeeping. Please turn off your cell phones, text messaging systems, other devices that make noise and are irritating to your friends and neighbors. So the way the simul works, all of our players up here will be playing black. Magnus will be playing white. The key, though, is that he will be sitting in this chair blindfolded. He will have his manager, Espen Augustine, moving for him as he calls out the moves. We will move from one board to the next. When Espen stands at this board, the player must call out their move loud enough so that Magnus can hear. Magnus will immediately call out his move. Espen will make it and go to the next board. You call out your move. Magnus calls out his. Okay.
But you didn't know that.
No.
But they just didn't want everybody to be sitting in silence.
Okay.
But
So Magnus is going to play, and you're going to commentate?
yeah, they're going to be commentaries. Yeah.
It's always entertaining when things change on the fly. So Magnus thinks you will be much more entertained if there is commentary about the games that are being played, rather than having him just sit here and have it be perfectly silent with him playing blindfolded. So now there's a little more challenge here for you because he's actually going to see. But we'll be commentating the games. There's no we here. Richard, who just left, will be commentating the games for us momentarily. This is a lot of fun. You can listen, find out what's going on. It's faster paced. And so we will begin momentarily. Do our players have any questions? You will shake hands before you start the game, as you would normally. So. There you go.
Facebook is going to be loaded today.
Magnus has taken his time trying to make these guys nervous. Sweat them out a little.
Are we ready?
You're timing this?
Now?
He has to walk here because he won't be able to get this.
Okay.
So we. Yeah.
Yeah, take
I
that.
just did that.
Please join me in welcoming Magnus Carlsen.
You go to this side. Walk around to that side.
Come on up. How's he going to? He's going to come around the chair. It's a very small stage.
I don't think you need a shirt.
No, we're going to remove the chair. So, yep. All right. Welcome, Magnus. Thank you. You got yours?
I've got
Okay. All right, let the games begin.
great.
Just to let you know, these are really small tables.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Kahn. I'll be providing color commentary on the games, and if you haven't experienced this before, you'll see that it's largely at the expense of the players who are brave enough to play tonight. My normal job is running a venture capital group down in Orange County, but I ran years ago to be the deputy president of the World Chess Federation, and Magnus and his team and I became good friends. So since I'm up here today, we're going to do this yet again, and we're going to have a good time. Let me ask first, does anybody out here play chess? How about the kids? Oh yeah, we have pros. All right, how many are under 14 years old who play chess? Excellent, excellent. How many of you think you can beat Magnus? All right. Oh yeah, you played Magnus just the other day. You said 2 days ago. You took it easy on him though. That was kind of you. So the rules are really simple. As Magnus comes around to your board, simply make your move at that moment, so he can see that you've made the move. He's not going to play blind tonight. The reason he decided and the team decided not to have him play blind is because largely it would not be interesting to the group that's watching, because they wouldn't be able to enjoy the game and understand what's happening. We're going to try to have the cameramen look at the boards periodically and show you what's happening up on the screen, so as we have commentary you can follow what's happening in the game and perhaps suffer along with the players or cheer them on. So in any event, any questions on how the process works, folks? We normally have little pulse meters on players to see how they withstand the pressure. We did that recently at an event, and but it was a little frightening actually in a couple of cases. So, so with that, why don't we get underway? All of you can take your seats. You've got your name tags on, and we'll have a lot of fun. And I'll try to distract Magnus as much as feasible to give you a hand. Absolutely. Sure. Thank you. So at the beginning of the game, you'll see that all the players are going to try to control the center of the board. That's one of the basic strategies in the first few moves of the game. Over here, this young man whose name is Vidam is playing one of the classical variations of chess that comes down from really the 1400s, the Ruy Lopez, named after essentially a leading religious figure at that time who was a great chess player. In that opening, which has been played by Fischer, Spassky, all the greats, both players try to get their pieces developed around the E4 and E5 squares. I'll be mentioning square names during my little analysis here, and you can follow it on the board. It's very simple in chess. You have an X and Y axis. The X axis is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. The Y axis is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So each square on the board has one name. For example, A1, B5. And then you simply identify where the pieces go to. It may be a little fast for you, but if you watch on the board, you'll get a sense of it. Here, for example, we're still looking at Vedam's game. He's playing a very standard opening position, except he's moved his queen up to the E7 square, which is an unusual move, and one that I suspect he will regret at some stage. The reason for this is that here sitting on E7, the queen blocks the development of the bishop. That's on F8. And in the early stages of the game, you have to get all of your pieces developed to good squares in the middle of the board if possible, or at least affecting the middle of the board. And so hopefully he'll find a way to move that queen and get it to a better location so he can complete his development. It's not unlike the concept if you're entering a battle and you have 10 planes to fight with. You don't want to go into your battle mode with just one of them circling the enemy camp. You'd like to have all 10 available to you to help defend. In the second game here with Andrew McLean, interesting, Magnus has played something that almost looks like let's see, like a Queen's Gambit type of opening that's developed a fair bit. And in the Queen's Gambit, the fight is largely for the putting a piece on the E5 square, which is out here. And one issue that Andrew is going to have in this game that you can see right at the very outset is he has a bishop here on E6, which is defending his pawn in the middle, but it doesn't have what you would call scope. The way to think of some ideas of chess is that each piece has value depending on where you put it. So take a simple example. If you put a knight on the edge of the board in the corner, it can only move to 2 squares. If you put it in the middle of the board, it can move to 8. And so the knight in a good position has far more power. In this situation, if you have the bishop on the E6 square, you can see that it is largely blocking its own movement because it's serving the role of a pawn. protecting the pawn on d5, which is an important role to play, but it's not where you want to put one of your pieces ultimately if you have a choice. Abel. By the way, do any of you guys play serious chess, tournament chess? I'm getting a lot of you do. Excellent. Well, now we have very high expectations for you, Ryan. I'm going to come over here in a minute and, oh boy. Well, Abel's playing a very solid game here. If you look at this position, you'll see that he has developed very smoothly his king side, meaning the pieces that are near his king. They're all having an effect in the center. And he has moved his bishop up to a very active square that cuts across the long diagonal, the white squared bishop. This is called fianchettoing your bishop, a very common technique in chess. And it allows the bishop to have a lot of scope. So if you want to, for a moment, compare this bishop's scope to the bishop that we looked at in the game prior just a moment ago. In this situation, Abel can move his pieces, his bishop to many, many squares, whereas in this situation, the bishop is quite limited in where it can go. Now, Jim is also developing his pieces in a smooth fashion. He does, though, have an issue with space. Chess is about many different concepts, and we'll talk about a few of them. I mentioned the scope of pieces, importance of squares is also significant, but space matters a lot, meaning if one side or the other has more squares that it controls, it's easier to maneuver your pieces. It's not unlike the difference between someone who is on the top in wrestling and can move around a lot and someone who is being pinned and doesn't have a lot of movement. In black's position here, you'll notice that white has greater control of the center by virtue of the pawn phalanx that controls a variety of squares in the middle of the board. And now that Jim has played the move b6, moving his pawn forward, he's trying to develop his bishop, but he's done what I've done on many occasions. He's created a weakness in his position. The weakness is this square here on c6, which is now being attacked by Magnus's pawn and cannot be defended by Jim's own pawn. And so in some positions, Magnus may find a way to place one of his pieces on that square, because what Magnus will be trying to do is get each of his pieces into a very active position in the middle of the board that controls key squares in the enemy camp. And he will not be in a hurry to do it, but in this sort of position where the pawns are sort of locked in the middle, he has a lot of time to accomplish that. Rohit is playing speed chess here. I've never seen a game develop quite this fast. A lot of pieces have already been exchanged in this, so I can't tell what the opening was, but it looks like it was. Do you know what opening you played?
No idea. I haven't named it yet.
You haven't named it yet. It may be it may be the one that I invented called the Harry Carey opening. But it looks as if he is down some material here, meaning that it appears that Magnus has an extra bishop. Am I right about that? It looks that way. And being down material is not the end of the world in chess, but it certainly is not the beginning either. And in this position in particular, you can see that the white squared bishop that's sitting on d5 is a very strong piece. It has no counterpart in the black camp, meaning the black no longer has a white squared bishop. And so that bishop just sits there covering the white squares in the black camp without any challenger. That's a really hard thing to deal with because there's so much pressure that extra piece creates. Now, Ryan told me that he is a future world champion, and so I have high expectations of what you're going to do here. And Ryan's following a strategy I've used against Magnus before, which is to lure the enemy pieces in as close to your king as possible. In sort of a Muhammad Ali-like rope-a-dope strategy that works on occasion, but only when Magnus is drinking heavily. So. Now, Ryan, did you sacrifice a piece already? No. No. Pardon me? Oh, no, you got the bishop. I'm sorry. You're good. Good. It's a bishop. Yeah, what do you think about the bishop that he's got here?
It's not a great bishop. But right now it's the only defender of his king, so it's a pretty important one.
That's high praise indeed from Magnus. Usually he won't even say a word. It's like, I don't know. No. But what Magnus is talking about here is that the bishop that sits here on G7, as you can see, does not have a lot of squares it can go to. Once again, the same concept. It's blocked in the middle, this time by Magnus's pawn chain. But as Magnus pointed out, at least it's defending his king. Why is that important? It's really important because there's an open H file which allows Magnus's rook to come into the black king position. It's an extremely dangerous position for Ryan. In fact, I don't know how he's handling this pressure. But the good news is it's all over quickly, and we're all, you know. It's particularly dangerous because Magnus has a knight hanging out also near the king. You can almost think of chess very simply as the accumulation of force at a certain point. You can think of it from this perspective. If you're going to punch someone, you generally don't do it with one finger unless you're a taekwondo master. You would make a fist. And in chess, if you quickly look at a position and you see 5 pieces surrounding a king, and only one piece essentially defending the king, that's a bad thing for the defender. There's too much force coming around. And if you look at this game, you can see you've got the rook, the knight, the queen, this rook can come over, this knight can come in, and you've also got pawns standing by, and you have the queen in this position. Looks like she's well placed to attack the king, but she doesn't have anyone helping her to attack Magnus's king, so essentially she's offsides, meaning she's far away from the action of defending, you know, the king of the that Ryan is trying to keep out of checkmate, potentially unsuccessfully. But we're all in this together, my friend, and I've been down this road many, many times. I think I've lost to more world champions and grandmasters than I can count in my life. You're doing great. You're still in this game. I just have to ask, the young people here, under 14, let me hear some cheering right now for this young man, for what he's doing here. Yeah, he's doing it. Yeah. Now, how do you like your position?
I hate it.
I hate it. Okay. When you have time, try to get your bishop out here. Let's take a look here. You see this? I'll try to get out of the way. Do you see your bishop that's sitting on the C8 square? That's blocking in that rook as well. So you've got 2 pieces that are still essentially in your hanger that you haven't gotten into the air yet. Got to get those out if you can. Magnus has asked me not to coach you in this, but we'll see. Did you resign?
First one.
Okay. Let's have a big round of applause. Well done. Well done.
Not really.
But you're also supporting a worthy cause, getting kids to play chess. That's a good thing. Yeah. And I know you all here are playing a big leadership role in the country and making that happen. Those of us from New York very much appreciate it. Okay, so how is that strategy going, Ryan, of bringing all the pieces closer to your king?
rid of his queen, so I'll ask a couple more moves.
Ryan's right. He was able to exchange queens. That's a big help because the queens are the big attacking pieces. So when you're defending, you try to get rid of the biggest artillery for your opponent. Jim, what do you want to tell all the folks about the position of having all these pawns?
I'm busted.
Busted. That's chess vernacular for, oh man, this is rough. You can see in Jim's position the power of pawns. Pawns are supposedly the soul of chess, meaning that they're the essence of the game. And you can see how these central pawns are just marching down. And these eventually give birth to a girl, a queen. And in this sort of situation, it's very possible that Magnus could end up with a couple of extra queens eventually when they reach the 8th rank. That's the danger of having the pawns marching down. They also cramp your pieces. They don't give you a spot where you can post your pieces because the pawns knock them away. I can tell you one thing, Jim, it's a lot easier to stand here than to be behind there with you. Yeah, Abel's playing a very, very good game here. This is one worth looking at. We've had a lot of exchanges. Magnus has a very solid pawn chain in the middle of the board, but Abel has nice pawns on the queen side if he can hold on to them. And but I'm not sure he will. The problem is, let's take a look at this. Abel now has what are called doubled pawns, meaning pawns that are in the same file together. And the problem with those pawns is they cannot defend one another. So in this sort of situation, Magnus can, at his leisure, gang up on them. So Magnus chose, rather than taking one of those weak pawns, he took a pawn in the center of the board, which, as you can see, now gives him essentially full control of the center with his pawn structure. And Abel has to find a way to keep those pawns from moving forward. In the meantime, though, he can hold his pawns because he has a black squared bishop that he has now posted on the b6 square, and that acts essentially as a pawn holding the pawn, the pawns on the queen side together, which is not a great use of them, and the bishop only looks at the central pawn structure of Magnus. On the other hand, Magnus has to figure out a way to make his pawn chain in the middle move forward without losing any of his pawns. It's much easier said than done, but I'm sure he'll find a way to accomplish that. Unless the cheering from the crowd distracts him. Yeah, there we go. There we go. You're only down a piece, right? And a pawn or so. More or less. Oh, do we have another resignation? Well done. Good job. You done? Ryan, any parting words to the crowd? Advice for the next people who play him?
No, all those pieces were right around my king, so got rid of the queen, but all those pieces were around my king, so getting rid of the queen just wasn't enough. So.
There does seem to be more to beating Magnus, I guess. But do you play on a chess team here, or what do you do? Or just for fun?
I used to play when I was younger. I play around here some.
Well, all I can say is if you'd been educated by first move, you would have won this game. There's no question about it. By the way, we do have Eric Anderson here tonight. Eric, where are you? The founder and leader of First Move. If any of you get a chance to say hi to him during the evening, He's a great guy and investor. He's done very well, and he's doing first move as a pro bono activity and doing a spectacular job. Eric, are you out here somewhere, or are you having dinner? Oh, there he is, back there. There's the man. And we have a resignation. Andrew, congratulations. Good job. What did you? Where do you think you went wrong, other than by accepting the challenge tonight?
I think everything went wrong. So I think it's probably the most stressful thing I've ever done.
Yeah. Well done. It does. We joke about it. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to get up here and match wits and brain power with Magnus. It's really overwhelming. So it takes a lot of courage. Wendy wanted me to remind everybody who's played not to leave. There'll be assigned boards by Magnus, which will include criticism of each of your moves. No. But you'll get that gift item. So what do you think about the status of the remaining games?
Well, this is the most interesting one. We'll see. There's a saying that all rook endgames are drawn. I'm not sure about this one.
Does that apply with slightly uneven opponents, or how does that work? But Magnus is, of course, correct that these sort of endgames where there are two rooks against two rooks often end in draws. You'll notice when you look at this board that Abel is playing that the game changes as it develops. At the beginning of the game, you want to put your king behind a fortress of pawns and stay safe, because there are many pieces on the board and you can easily be attacked. As the game progresses and you reach an end game, as Abel has here by playing brilliantly to get to this stage, the king becomes a fighting piece. It's no longer in danger really of being checkmated except in unusual circumstances, but it can do a lot of good if it gets to the middle of the board and starts attacking pieces and pawns. So the nature of the game shifts tremendously. And I think Abel has a great chance, except for one small factor, which is that Magnus is best known in the chess world for being the best endgame player in history. And he can take on the top grandmasters in the world in even positions after 60 moves and just crush them over the next 30 by accumulating infinitesimal advantages. He's done this in the candidates match, in the World Championship, and perhaps we'll see it here tonight as well. Abel, you obviously play serious chess. What are you rated?
1918.
1918, excellent. Very impressive. Yes. Now Abel is down one pawn in the endgame, which is not necessarily fatal, but there is a significant rating difference between these two gentlemen. Jim has recently opened up a new business and that's sort of holistic masochism. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
No.
He has 4 pawns coming down towards the queening squares, and it's a challenging situation, but he is finding ways to defend. But this is going to be tricky, really tricky. Magnus has made mistakes in these positions, but unfortunately he was only 3 years old at the time. And Abel is doing what I would do in this position, which is giving up pawns which he should not give up. And so it gets a little bit more difficult. Was that a sacrifice, or was that sort of just camaraderie with a fellow mediocre player?
It was a sacrifice with no intent.
There you go. it's really difficult, particularly under the pressure of playing with Magnus, of course, with all these witnesses, not to make miscalculations, especially when you're playing essentially speed chess, because Magnus is coming around more quickly now. You have just seconds to make a move, and Magnus is accustomed to that. He could play easily oh, there we have it. Jim, congratulations. Well done. Any final thoughts?
I was just waiting for someone to pull the fire alarm.
But my point was, Magnus is a spectacular speed player, so he can calculate variations in a split second, even with a buddy talking aimlessly, during his evaluations. It's much more difficult for amateurs to do that. I believe that Abel just decided to contribute to the charity one of his rooks. Oh, we have a resignation. 2 resignations. Let's hear it for both of these gentlemen. Yeah. Let's get all the players up here, everybody who played, let's get a photo and have a big round of applause for these gladiators as their photo's being taken. Come on, guys, everybody up.
Let's get another big round of applause for the opponents and Magnus and Richard.